The studio lights were blinding, the cameras focused, and the audience waited in silence. Mike Tyson, former heavyweight champion, feared across the globe, sat calmly on a sleek gray leather chair. He had been on shows like this before. Nothing ever shook him. Until today. The host, dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, leaned forward and said, "Mike, someone special wrote you a letter. Someone who said your life helped shape his own. Would you be willing to read it on air?" Tyson raised an eyebrow. "Who?" The host smiled but didn't answer. Instead, he handed Tyson a crisp white envelope. The name on the back made Tyson blink twice. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The room shifted. Everyone leaned in. Tyson tore the envelope open with those same hands that once knocked men unconscious in seconds. But as he unfolded the paper and began to read, his voice suddenly trembled. His fingers started shaking. His eyes were no longer fierce. They looked lost. The host frowned. "What's in that letter, Mike?" he whispered. Tyson didn't answer. He just stared. Tyson's lips moved slowly as he read, almost in a whisper. "Dear Mike Tyson, you do not know me personally, but I have known you since I was a child in West Africa. My name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré." The cameras zoomed in. "When I was young, our village had no TV. But one night, a traveling man came with a small screen and showed us your fight against Trevor Berbick. I watched you walk into that ring like you feared no one. I was just 9. That night, I told my mother, I want to be like him. Strong, brave, unstoppable." Tyson paused. He swallowed hard. But life was not kind. Rebels attacked my village when I was 12. I saw things no child should see. I had to run. I had to fight. And every time I wanted to give up, I remembered your fights. I remembered how you got knocked down, but always stood up. The studio was still. "Mike, you taught me to stand, even when my world was falling." Tyson slowly looked up at the host. There were tears in his eyes now. "I had no idea," he muttered. The host sat frozen. Nobody spoke. Nobody could. Tyson turned the page. "Mike, when I became a soldier, I carried you in my mind. I studied your discipline, your rage, your control. I rose through the ranks, not because I was the strongest, but because I never quit. Just like you." The host sat up straighter, trying to speak, but stopped. Tyson kept reading. "When the people of Burkina Faso were crying for leadership, I stepped forward. Not because I was the smartest, not because I was the oldest, but because I remembered you walking alone into that ring, while millions watched. And still, you did not flinch." Tyson covered his mouth. His shoulders shook. "Mike, there was one day I almost gave up. A convoy I was leading got ambushed. I lost good men. My best friend died in my arms. I was bleeding, thinking I wouldn't make it. Then I remembered something you once said after a fight. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I thought, this is my punch. Now I rise." The studio fell completely silent. Tyson dropped the letter on his lap. And then, in front of millions, he cried. Tears rolled down his face, real, raw, silent. The host whispered, "We're going to a short break." But nobody moved. Tyson wiped his face, staring down at the letter. A silence filled the studio. A silence even the cameras didn't dare interrupt. He turned the next page, his voice cracked. "Mike, I want to tell you about a day that changed me. It was in 2004, I was just 16. We heard screaming near the edge of our village. Armed men were coming. My mother grabbed my hand. My little sister was crying. My father stood at the door with a machete. He told us to run." Tyson stopped. His lips were trembling. "We ran through the bush. My father stayed behind. That was the last time I saw him. Later, we found out he was tortured before they killed him. I was angry, Mike. so angry. I wanted revenge, but your words, they stayed with me. Anger is the enemy. The audience looked stunned. The host leaned forward, whispering, "Are you okay, Mike?" But Tyson didn't respond. He stared ahead, remembering his own childhood, his own anger, his pain. He had never met Traoré. Yet somehow, they had walked the same path. And suddenly, Mike looked broken. Tyson's voice was hoarse now. He glanced at the host, but said nothing. He simply kept reading. "Mike, after my father died, I joined a youth protection force. I was still a boy, but I trained like a soldier. I slept on concrete. I ate once a day. But at night, I snuck into the camp office. There was a small radio, and one night, I heard your voice on a documentary." Tyson blinked. "You said, I was born in pain, but I made pain my strength." That line, Mike, I wrote it on the wall above my cot. Every morning I read it. It became my prayer. When I was cold, I whispered it. When I was weak, I screamed it. When I buried my best friend, I carved it into the wood of his grave. Mike lowered the letter to his lap. He looked like he couldn't breathe. The host handed him a tissue, but Mike didn't take it. His voice finally broke. I never knew I meant anything to anyone like that." The camera caught his hand, trembling. And for the first time in his life, the baddest man on the planet looked fragile. Tyson finally looked up at the host. "Can I read the last page?" The host nodded slowly. Tyson continued. "Mike, years later, I was sent to lead a peacekeeping patrol in a remote region. A village had been torn apart. Mothers were digging through rubble with bare hands. Children were crying beside lifeless bodies. I asked myself, why am I here? I am not enough." He stopped and took a deep breath. "But then I remembered the night you lost to Buster Douglas. Everyone said you were finished, but you came back, stronger. That taught me something. Real strength is not winning every time. It's showing up when your body says no." Tyson looked away from the letter, eyes red and watery. "So I showed up for that village, Mike. I stayed with them. We rebuilt one home at a time. I hugged every orphan I found. I told them you matter, just like you made me feel, even from across the ocean." The audience began to shift. Some wiped tears. The letter wasn't just a tribute. It was a mirror. Mike Tyson, the fighter, was never forgotten. Even in the heart of Africa, his pain had healed someone else. Tyson stared blankly at the cameras. The paper trembled in his hands, but he kept reading. "Mike, I don't admire you because you won titles. I admire you because you survived." Tyson's lips quivered. "You lost your mother when you were young. I lost my father. You grew up fighting in the streets. So did I. You were misunderstood. So was I. The world saw only your fists, but I saw your heart, and that gave me the courage to protect mine." He paused, blinking fast, and then he whispered, almost too softly for the mic to catch, "He's talking about me like he knows me." The host, visibly moved, leaned closer. "Do you want to stop reading, Mike?" Tyson shook his head. "No. I need this." He looked up. "For years, people just saw the monster in me. But this man from Burkina Faso, he sees something else." The host swallowed hard. "What?" Tyson pressed the letter to his chest. "He sees the little boy I buried to survive." The studio went dead quiet, because for the first time in history, Mike Tyson was not fighting. He was finally healing. Tyson folded the letter for a moment and sat back, and then, unexpectedly, he began to speak, freely. "I was 9 years old, Brownsville, Brooklyn. No food in the house. My mom was crying in the kitchen. My stepfather was passed out. And I remember walking outside barefoot, looking for something to eat. The host leaned in. The cameras kept rolling. I saw a man slap a kid and take his candy, so I followed him. I waited until he turned a corner. Then I hit him. I was 9. He was 30-something. I broke his nose. He looked at the host. No one ever asked why I was violent. I was starving. I was scared. The audience sat frozen. That's why this letter... He pointed to the paper. This letter is hitting me. Because this man, Ibrahim, he lived through pain. But he didn't become the monster. He became the protector. The host's voice was shaky. Are you saying you wish you had become like him? Tyson nodded. Tears streamed down his face. I wish someone gave me a letter when I was a kid. I might have saved myself. The studio wasn't just watching a breakdown anymore. They were watching a rebirth. Mike Tyson unfolded the final page of the letter. His hands shook, but he read on. Mike, this letter is not just to thank you. It's to tell you what you saved me from. I was once on the edge, literally. The studio tensed. I climbed to the edge of a radio tower. I felt like the world didn't need me. I was tired. I was broken. But then I remembered your interview, the one where you said, the world doesn't care if you're hurting, so you gotta care about yourself first. Tyson's voice cracked again. That night I climbed back down, I cried, I prayed, and I made a promise. If I lived, I would protect others the way you protected me, without even knowing it. Tyson let the paper fall to his lap. He couldn't speak, not right away. And then he looked up at the crowd, blinking through tears. I thought I was forgotten, he said. I thought everything I did was wasted. The host whispered, but it wasn't. Tyson nodded, barely able to hold it together. This man, Captain Ibrahim, he didn't just survive. He carried my pain and turned it into peace. The letter had ended, but Tyson sat still. The lights above him buzzed softly. The crowd, hundreds watching in person, millions more at home, waited, breath held. The host cleared his throat gently. Mike, do you want to say anything? Back to Captain Traoré? Tyson looked down at his fists. Hands once feared across the world, now trembling like a boy's. He finally spoke, very slowly. I used to pray someone would see the real me. He looked up, voice cracking. This man, Ibrahim, he's not just a soldier, he's a mirror, a brother, a version of me that chose the light. The host's eyes were moist now, too. Tyson reached for a pen and paper from the host's desk. Can I write back? He asked softly. The host nodded. Tyson whispered, I don't want him to ever think he saved me. But he did. He began scribbling on the paper, tears falling onto the ink. And the studio watched in silence as Mike Tyson, the Iron Man, wrote a letter back. No longer the fighter, now just a man. Tyson kept his head low as he wrote. The studio cameras didn't zoom in, they gave him space. After minutes that felt like hours, he placed the pen down and raised the letter. The host looked stunned. Do you want to read it out loud? He asked. Tyson nodded. He opened the paper with trembling fingers. Dear Captain Ibrahim Traoré, I've knocked down giants. I've been a world champion. I've had money, fame, and fear behind me. But no letter, not one punch, ever hit me like yours. The crowd sat silent, moved. I want to say this like a man, from my heart. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Purpose. Tyson paused to breathe. When I was a boy, no one wrote to me. I was just a wild kid from Brooklyn. But your words, they hugged me from across the world. His voice broke again. So I'm writing you back, not as Mike Tyson the boxer, but as Mike, the boy who always wished someone saw his pain. You saw it. Thank you, Ibrahim. From now on, I'll be your biggest fan. And then he folded the letter, kissed it gently, and placed it in his jacket. The audience was in tears. The host leaned forward. "Mike, there's something you don't know." Tyson looked up, confused. "What?" The host smiled, softly, slowly. "That letter? It arrived with something else." He reached under the table and pulled out a small box. Inside it was a worn military patch, faded but clean. Tyson stared. "What's that?" The host explained. "This was sewn onto Captain Traoré's vest during a mission where he almost lost his life. He asked us to give it to you, if you cried." The studio gasped softly. Tyson swallowed hard. "Why?" The host smiled. He said, "Give him this if he cries, because if Tyson cries, it means the warrior finally found peace." Tyson held the patch to his chest. And then the host revealed one more twist. "There's one more thing, Mike. Captain Traoré is in New York. He's outside this building, watching this live." The audience erupted. Tyson's eyes went wide. His voice broke again. "Can I meet him?" The host turned to the camera, smiling through emotion. After the break, the moment the world has been waiting for. The lights dimmed. The world waited. And the most powerful reunion in modern TV history was about to unfold. The studio returned from break, but the mood had completely changed. Tyson sat forward, eyes fixed on the glowing hallway just beyond the stage. His fingers still clutched the patch Traoré sent. The host stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man whose words brought the Iron Mike to tears, Captain Ibrahim Traoré." The crowd rose instantly. Applause thundered, but Tyson stayed seated, breath shallow. Then the studio doors opened. Ibrahim stepped in. Not in full military gear, but in a simple, crisp white shirt and slacks. Humble, calm, dignified. He walked with quiet strength, no ego, no noise, just presence. Tyson stood up slowly. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world felt completely silent. Two men from opposite sides of the earth. Two warriors, scarred, tested, misunderstood. They didn't speak. They hugged. Not a handshake. Not a staged photo. A full embrace. Tyson broke down again, shoulders shaking, tears falling openly into Traoré's shoulder. Traoré whispered, "You helped raise me, Mike." Tyson pulled back just enough to whisper, "You helped save me." The crowd was silent again. Some wept. Others clapped softly. This was no performance. This was healing, broadcast to the world. After the embrace, the two sat down side by side. The host looked at the camera. "We're going to let these two talk naturally." He stood and left the stage. No script, no teleprompter, just raw conversation. Tyson looked at Traoré with a smile full of pain. "Man, I don't know how to thank you." Ibrahim nodded. "You already did. Every time you stood up when the world expected you to stay down, that's how." Tyson laughed, wiping his eyes. "I thought I was done, washed up. I felt useless." Traoré replied gently, "But you were still speaking to people, even when you were silent." The studio stayed quiet, hanging on to every word. "I used to hate myself," Tyson admitted. "My anger, my past, the things I did." "You're not your past," Traoré said firmly. "You're the reason a little African boy found strength in the dark." Tyson nodded slowly. He looked out at the audience, then back at Ibrahim. "I wish my mother could see this." Ibrahim gently placed a hand on Tyson's. "She just did." And with that, the strongest man in the world finally smiled. Before the show ended, the host returned to the stage. He noticed something strange. Tyson had taken off one of his most prized possessions, a small gold pendant he wore during every interview. He handed it to Ibrahim. "What's this?" Traoré asked. Tyson placed it in his palm. "My mother gave this to me before she died. It's the only thing I've kept since I was a kid. I want you to have it." The audience gasped softly. Ibrahim shook his head. "Mike, I can't take this." "You have to," Tyson said. "You carried my story when I didn't even want it anymore. Now let this carry yours." Traoré held it like it was made of glass. "You're sure?" Tyson nodded. "You deserve it more than I ever did." The crowd stood, giving them both a long, tearful standing ovation. No one in the room wanted to leave. Not yet. The camera zoomed in as the two men stood hand in hand. And at that moment, race didn't matter. Borders didn't matter. History didn't matter. Only this did. Two broken boys who became warriors and found peace in each other. The interview was supposed to be over. The time slot had passed. The credits were cued. But no one moved. Mike Tyson stood, turned to the camera, and asked if he could say something directly to the world. The host nodded. Tyson stepped forward, holding the letter from Ibrahim in one hand, the military patch in the other. "I used to believe the world was too cold for hope," he began. "But today, I was proven wrong." He looked straight into the camera. This man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, he didn't come here to show off. He didn't come here for fame. He came to show love. Real love. The kind that saves people. He held up the patch. He wore this when he risked his life for his people. But somehow he still thought of me. That broke me. The studio was silent. "You know what's real strength?" Tyson asked. "Not how hard you hit, but how deeply you heal. And Ibrahim Traoré, that man, is the strongest warrior I've ever met." The audience stood again. This time, not for a fighter, but for a man who fought without fists. Within minutes, the interview clip went viral. News outlets across Africa, Europe, and America replayed the hug, the tears, and Tyson's heartfelt words. Social media exploded with hashtags. Tyson and Traoré, strength through pain. Real men cry too. Ibrahim inspired the world. People began posting their own stories of struggle. How Tyson once inspired them, and now how Ibrahim was continuing that legacy. In Burkina Faso, the streets erupted, not in protest, but in pride. Children painted murals of Traoré holding Tyson's pendant. School children memorized lines from the letter. In New York, men who grew up hard like Tyson said they cried for the first time in years. One father tweeted, "My son watched that moment. He said, 'Dad, I want to be brave like Captain Traoré.' I cried. Real tears." And Tyson. He posted a video the next morning. No makeup, no suit, just him holding the letter. "That wasn't just a TV moment. That was my rebirth. Ibrahim, wherever you are, you didn't just honor me. You reminded me I'm still alive. Thank you." Two men, one letter. The world changed. 1 month later, Tyson and Ibrahim launched something that no one expected. The Iron Peace Foundation. A project dedicated to helping young boys from the Bronx to Bobo Dioulasso find strength, brotherhood, and healing before the world breaks them. Tyson donated $1 million. Ibrahim matched it with government and private support. They traveled to refugee camps and broken schools. They hugged kids who reminded them of themselves. One night, Tyson stood on a hill in Burkina Faso, beside Traoré. He looked up at the stars and said, "My mom, she'd be proud of this." Ibrahim smiled, and so would my father. The two stood in silence. No cameras, no applause, just peace. And when the world watched the final footage from their journey, one message appeared across the screen. Pain gave us fists, but love gave us purpose. If this story touched your heart, even a little, like this video to honor all the silent fighters in this world, comment below with the words, "I believe in healing." Let the world see you're part of something bigger. Subscribe now if you believe stories like this need to be told, because the world doesn't just need more content. It needs more courage, more love, and more truth. Let's carry this story forward together.